Okay, so we're recording. Anybody got their camera on? You can go ahead and turn it off. I'll edit it out at the beginning. And lo-fi hip hop should be done.
Is there any
All right.
way you increase
Go ahead.
the size of that?
Say that one more time.
Can you increase the size of
Of the font?
yeah. Or
Yeah, I think I can. How's that look?
good.
Okay. So today I'm going to do the normal Rick and Morty. It's basically the same thing as what I covered in one of my other videos, but this is going to have. I think the last time that I did this, where I recorded it, we were using Yarn still, and this is going to be NPM. So same basic thing. Only thing that I did was previously is I did an npx create React app and then put it into rnm-pt30 for the directory. So all of that is it's not really on the sprint. You don't have to make a new React app or anything, so it works out just fine. I'll put my VS Code here. And
so our sprint won't be something where we're raw dogging a whole new nothing in there page.
Yeah,
it'll have some type of construction.
It'll have structure in there. I believe this one is the turn that we do Star Wars. So, and they have an API that you can connect to that's very similar to Rick and Morty, except maybe a little bit more deeper dive into some of the information on the different characters. But you know, like they'll have Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader and stuff like that. So, but just your normal Star Wars stuff. And they used to give you a choice on it, but yeah, I'm just going to do the Rick and Morty one, which is what it used to be, because I also like Rick and Morty. Not that I dislike Star Wars at all. I like it a lot, but I'm not going to show you guys the exact code on how to pass your sprint, just the same basic idea and strategy on how to pass it. So, you know, typically whenever you're doing your code grade, like I was saying, always follow that video. A lot of people they forget to put their branch name in their webhook, or they put a $sign in between, like the branch name and the equal sign, because they followed somebody else's tutorial or the online tutorials that come with code grade. There's just so many ways of not doing code grade correctly that I just say follow the video, and people who follow the video seem to do it. If you don't see submissions, we need to look at that webhook, because I would say 99% of the time the webhook was incorrect, and we had to fix the webhook to make it work. So that seems to be the key. The other 1% of the time is like weird connectivity issues, or people who had flexed and they're using an old version of the sprint. Each one of the sprints is unique. The tests are unique, and they have identifiers in them that determine that they're from this this cohort. So you can't just copy and paste your code from a prior sprint and make it work. You want to do it from scratch, or bad things happen. So and looks like we got somebody else. Looks like we got Jacob here.
So what you're saying is they know if you're cheating.
Well, we don't really call it cheating, because there's so many ways of finding somebody else's code and then interpolating what they had. And there's only a certain number of ways of doing this. But when somebody comes up and they've got Material UI and They have, basically everything that I programmed in my sprint when I went through this. Yeah, it's kind of obvious to me that you cheated if you're copying from my repo. Don't copy from my repo, please. They kind of know that, and it's obvious when it's like, we're doing something that we're not taught in class, like material UI. We weren't taught that in class, but we were asked to style it however we wanted way back in the day. So I already knew material, so I did material. But in this one, they're going to want styled components. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to do an npm start and get the server running, and then whenever it opens up the window, I'm going to move the window over. And you're going to be giving something kind of, sort of similar to a fresh create React app. There's not going to be much of anything in there. They're going to tell you what to name your components and things like that, just like previous tests where they say, hey, don't change certain files, because the testing routine looks for a specific file name to be able to pass the tests. And I don't think they really care about different variable names, but just pay attention to the README file. But I'm going to be doing a very similar pattern to this. So typically what they'll give you is they're going to give you like a background image on whenever you create the React app. And I think that it's an app this time around. So if you get to the point where you see, Star Wars and there's a big ad in the background, then you've got you've got it at least compiling, then you're pretty much ready to go. And I'm going to go and open up another terminal. Elise, is that still big enough for you? Do you need me to increase the size?
It's good. It's good. I want to.
Let's go one more up.
I want to know how to start this whole thing from scratch.
Oh yeah. So
Files. I guess I could just watch.
So I'm gonna do my new branch. So at this point here, this is where I typically will start doing my my code grade instructions after I've done my git checkout. So if you do your code grade and you made sure it was connected and then you branch, well, it's not going to work. Because if it was working without a branch, then it's not going to work with a branch, because it's going to be looking in your main, not in your Brian Hague, and then that means that you need to go through and adjust your webhook. So yeah, so you've got to be in the branch, and you've got to do like a generic push. So a lot of people say that you need to make just a regular normal change to the file. So typically what I would do is you make some sort of a change inside of here, and then you would do your push. Just put something inside of your app. I'd probably leave most of the structure the way it is on that one, but I'm getting rid of that because I don't know. There's something about nails down a chalkboard about that spinning React icon, and I don't know what it is. So I usually just try to get rid of it as fast as I can. But yeah, at this point, you would do your get add, get mid. Removed awful. And then you would do like a git push, but in this case I don't have anything to push to, so it wouldn't work. But at that point you could go in after you've done that push and see if it actually connected to your GitHub in code grade. If that worked, at that point, it should work as many times as you want to push. You know, it's going to see your progress, and it's not going to hold it against you. Now, you know, we say to try to allocate 3 hours for this. You know, let me be clear that you know, if you're running over, I mean, it's not like the world's going to end. I would much prefer you to use this time to learn if you don't know it, and get a passing grade and continue on. So I'm not one of these people that's a stickler on that. Lambda wants you to try to take it in 3 hours, but you have until Sunday night at midnight Pacific, well, 11:59 Pacific, and I probably wouldn't push it even to the last minute on that, because sometimes code create takes up to an hour to register that you even made a push. Especially when it's the first push or you haven't pushed in a while, then for whatever reason it's really slow. But highly recommend, you know, spending the time with it. You know, we don't have a timer on this. We don't really care how long it takes you to do it. Just get it done and try to make it as close to what they want you to have as possible. One of the other things is the tests are not super robust. So when they're asking for like the name, don't concatenate any string inside of like a paragraph. So like don't do like a paragraph tag, name, colon, you know, and then whatever data is coming in. So don't do like you know, p tag, sorry, and do you know, name, and then, you know, that just autofill. But
It doesn't look like it makes sense anyway.
yeah. So the thing is, the test is not going to realize that this is correct until you get rid of that name right there. So, you know, if you want to go for style points or something, then that's fine, but it's going to fail the test. So it doesn't have to make sense from a, you know, a point of view from, you know, making it so that it's easier for you to understand what type of data is on there. It's just a lot easier for you to make it so that, you know, that data is just displayed and nothing more. And you know, if you want to do, you know, like like an H3, you know, and then do name, and then underneath there do a P, and then, you know, do I'm just using, you know, whatever data I have. I'll enter that chat again. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of the CSS as well, and it doesn't like that. But you know, the whole idea is that we'll say oops. You know, something like that, right?
So
So this,
basically, if it's asking you to do something, you need to do it specifically. You may be able to put something somewhere else, but not in the scope of where it's going to be checked.
yeah, because it's stupid. It's a robot. It's not even an AI or anything. It's a robot. It was told to look for Luke Skywalker, not name Luke Skywalker.
Bless its heart.
Oh yeah, it's horrible. And I can't tell you how many people still passed, but we're wondering why they didn't get 100%. They got like an 88% or something because of this stupid problem where his name, you know, Luke Skywalker.
The Cypress thing or whatever it is that is that what's going to happen anytime we do NPM test?
Well, I don't think this one's a Cypress one. I think this one is a jest test. So it's the text-based one that everybody hated from before.
That's a bummer, because that Cypress is beautiful. It is very handy.
It's a different type of test. That's an end-to-end test, where it tests the entire picture, the whole picture of everything, and which is also fantastic. But you know, the issue with Cypress is that we're trying to test individual components and find where it fails in an individual component, not where it fails overall. So, but we'll teach you guys Cypress next unit in one day. It's actually pretty simple. So again, I'm not going to go into it today, but yeah, it's almost an afterthought. It's so easy to do. It's very similar to jest testing, which we'll go into in unit 3 and also unit 4, but for different reasons. So I think that I've got snippets installed on this one. That's just so. Some of the things that a lot of people get stuck on is they're afraid of looking around in here. So like this package lock is generated from package JSON. So the package JSON file is basically just everything that this program needs to operate. Without this file, it can't generate a program. So package JSON is in here. The program works. The package JSON is there. It does not work. It's vital. But you know, node modules and package JSON, you don't need those to make it work unless you want to npm I and it'll regenerate them. So technically, if something's weird, delete package lock and node modules. And when you do npm I the second time, it will regenerate this package lock and the node modules folder and fix a lot of problems if you run into any issues with the build. On the package JSON, the things that are interesting, the package JSON in unit 2 is this dependencies and this scripts. So anytime that I type npm start, it's a shortcut for npm run start, and it runs this line. If you run npm run build, it runs this line. If you run npm run test, it runs this line. And if you run npm run eject, please don't do this. It will ruin everything. It will do this. That's like, you know, my airplane is crashing, I'm ejecting, all your code goes down, and you have something that appears to be JavaScript when you eject it. So don't eject. Bad things happen. So because we're going to need to do Axios today, I don't see Axios anywhere in here. So because there's no Axios, we need to install it. And I know I need Axios because I'm going to be connecting into a Rick and Morty API. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do, and I'm going to have to look this up because I always forget if it's style dash components or style components. So,
Hey, Brian,
yeah.
is there a way we can follow along code with you? Should we just be opening up the sprint challenge as like a separate one and just doing stuff in there, or what do you
If you really want to. Most of the time, a lot of people just kind of watch, and it's being recorded anyway. So, but this is just a fresh npx create React app and whatever directory you want to create React app in. So,
Okay, got it.
you know, it's a very, very, very fresh, clean installation with nothing in it. So,
Thank you.
it's a styled dash components. So if we go to npm, watch my internet thing. There we go. All right, so you can actually see the install is npm I styled components. I've got npm I styled components. So if you notice up here, when I did that npm I axios, it throws it up into line 9, and this will be between 12 and 13 is where it's going to put this. And of course, without styled components, you have no styled when you try to do a styled component. So it's kind of hard to do a styled component if this is not installed. I don't think I'm really going to go really deep into that. Maybe we'll do like one styled component. They want you to use it, but it's fairly simple. I'm not the best at styled components, but you just do styled, like styled dot, whatever the type of component that you're doing, and then whatever you want to call it, I think. But there's really not much to it. We've got, first I have three. Const button equals styled A. So this is actually an A tag, and they're calling it a button. And then, you would just access this like any other component where you do, like a button, like that. If I can install today, and then, like that. So that's kind of how styled components work. I mean, they've got enough documentation on their website that you can get through almost all of this. Is that upward deleted? So the first order that we're going to do is we're going to look at the Rick and Morty API. And if I go to the documentation, they have some really good documentation. I really like using this because it's a well-documented API. Everything about this is just really, really quite fantastic. So they have, the character schema. This is all the stuff that's inside of that. If you wanted to get all characters, you just go to this website. And well, of course, it's broken because I probably hit it way too many times. So we'll just do character. But this character website here is the base API that we want. And this right here is a parameter. So the 2 is a parameter where you can get just one character's information. So we're going to go ahead and do we're going to import useState. And we're just going to go in here and call our new variable. Why do I wrap that? I've been having a program view all day, so always fun. And this is just going to be a string with the Rick and Morty API URL. So kind of the reason why I usually try to do this is, what if I didn't want to connect to the Rick and Morty API? What if I clone this API because, I'm really good at computers, I could probably do it. But I didn't want to hard code in Rick and Morty API in 15 different places. This allows me to have one source of truth on what our base URL is for the endpoint. So what if I had Brian's Rick and Morty API.com? Now I just need to update this one place instead of 50 different places for 50 different types of calls. So that's more advanced. You don't really have to do that. You can still do your Axios call the way that you want. The second thing that we're going to want is we're going to want some sort of array that's going to hold this information. So typically on this one, we'll do characters and set. Notice how I'm using it plural because it's going to be a list of characters. And we're going to use state on this. And this one's going to be an array. We don't have anything in the array right now, but for right now, it's just an array of what's going to be characters. So if I'm going to do an Axios call, can anybody tell me what I should be putting that Axios call in and why? Nobody wants to talk. Hopefully I didn't lose anybody.
Axios.get.
But yeah, I want to do an axios.get. But the thing is, if I just put it here and I update my characters with set character, it's going to just continue to re-render over and over and over. So there's something else that I want to do where I wrap this axios.get in a useEffect. Yeah. So the useEffect takes a callback and has a dependency array. So
What are you gonna call the right?
I'm using the Mac shortcuts. Come on. It's horrible. I'm losing my mind with this. All right, so we've got a useEffect. So what this is going to do is this useEffect is going to run exactly one time because there's nothing in its dependency array at the end, right here. And later on, we'll get into what we can put in there for one of the stretch goals is to do like a search box. And I'll show you a quick, easy way of doing a search box. It's pretty cool. So this axios.get, when you have a useEffect, this happens at the end of the virtual DOM render. It says, hey, I've got this useEffect here. I'll just do the stuff that's in there. And anytime that there's a change, I'm going to do it again with any type of change on the variable that's in here. It'll just loop. So you don't want to put your characters in here, even though it's going to error out saying that there's an empty field here. You don't want to put anything there. You're smarter than the linter. But we're using this useEffect just to run axios.get one time. We don't need it to run 50 times. We don't need it to run more than one time unless we make a change to the base URL, which we're not going to do because I don't even have a setter here, or some other information afterwards, like page information or something like that. But for right now, we don't really care to do that. That's not a part of MVP. So we've got this axios.get, and we can just do base URL. And I'm going to put this in a then. The then is going to take a callback. And typically you'll see people do res for result or resolution. I've heard all kinds of names for it. And I will just console log res.data. So res.data is basically this screen that we see here. And technically what I want is I want res.data and something else. But we'll find that here in a second. So I'm going to save this. And if I inspect and go to console, you'll see that it returned an object. And we've got results. So I'm using the actual part where it's calling the information here to figure out exactly what's there. So now info has got some really interesting stuff in here as well, like how to get to the next page, and if there's a previous page, and how many pages there are, how many characters there are. You know, that's pretty cool. We could probably turn this into a neat application with this, but you know, tube on a sprint night, probably not. But what I am looking for is this array here. So, you know, we've got an array of objects. So I can go to all 20 of these objects on page 1. And we get Rick and Morty, Summer, Beth, Jerry, and never been able to pronounce her name. I won't even try. Aberdorf, Linkler, etc. ad nauseum, all the way down to Anson Myers Johnson, one of my personal favorites. So we're actually going to want res.data.results. And I'm going to save that just to make sure. And now if you notice, we're getting back an array of 20 things, nothing else. We're not getting back this info or anything. So this is something that we can loop over, and it's also something that we can set. So we can do set characters res.data.results. So one of the weird things about React is because you're dealing with multiple renders, a lot of people will go here, console log characters. And this is just going to be this empty set here because it's still on that first render right here. And set characters hasn't happened yet. It looks like it's happened because it came before here, but set characters doesn't do what you think it does. Kind of like inconceivable. So let me clear this and refresh. So you can see on app.js line 14 here that we're console logging characters and there's nothing there. So a lot of people freak out that there's nothing in their array. When there is, it's just characters has you know,
Not been changed yet.
yeah, it hasn't been changed yet. Again, I'm stuck on Mac presets because I have a Mac for my work and I keep hitting the wrong buttons. Let me figure out. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So what I can do is I can move this out of this useEffect. So when I move this out of the useEffect, this is going to run on every single render. So it'll run on the first render, it'll run on the second render, which is really nice because I get to see every single time that this thing renders, it'll tell me what the character's data is. So if I clear that, refresh it, you can see this first time that it goes through on app.js line 17 here, app.js line 17, that first time that it renders, there's nothing there because that's what we passed into useState. And at this line here, app.js line 12, it has run the useEffect. It's not going to run the useEffect again. It has console logged out res.data.results, not characters. And we set the characters. And now that it's been set, this runs again. So it ran through all that code, re-rendered it. It determined it didn't need to run useEffect again. And then it printed out app.js line 17, which has that information. So if you want to see what's in there, you just put it above the return, and it's fine. You know, console log characters. So this is enough information for us to actually start doing something useful, because we know that we have data here in our state. So, but we're not displaying anything. So we're just going to have to start making some components. And I can tell you right now, you have a components folder. And I cannot express how much I need to tell you guys. If this is lowercase and you change it to uppercase and you're not perfectly aware of what that does on Git, Git thinks that you're in a new directory, but because Git stores both upper and lowercase, it thinks that it's both upper and lowercase. And so all your previous changes are in the lowercase components directory, and all your new changes are in the uppercase components directory, or vice versa. And it just screws up the entire program, and you have to get somebody who knows how to fix it, or you to figure it out.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Can you please just remind us one more time what this dependency array does?
Okay, so this dependency array, let's say I want to do a search term. And let's say that when the search changes, so we'll do a useState, and we'll just do an empty string, right? So the search is empty. If I put search in here, which is referring to our state here, if anybody touches set search and passes anything into set search, including an empty string, it will cause this useEffect to run again. Does that clear it up?
So it like makes it so it runs only once, but it can run again if you put something in it.
Yeah, it runs at the end of the render, and it will run if somebody changes this variable through set search.
You said the word and.
Yes, it will do. It will run the useEffect exactly once, whether or not set search was run on its first render, and it will run the useEffect every time that set search is run thereafter.
That makes so much sense as to why you can't put some kind of conditional in there to check for, and you have to use an if statement inside there.
Oh yeah. So like if I put characters in here, the problem is that we're running set character or set characters here. So that automatically triggers on the next render that it will run characters, or it will run this useEffect again because we have modified characters. So you don't want to put characters in there. That's very bad. It will run you out of API calls, and you'll be in a corner rocking and crying. You know what then? So search would be one that I would put in there, and we'll get into that later. But you know, for right now, this is the correct syntax until we want to run that useEffect again. Putting whatever's inside of here is what triggers the useEffect, and it needs to be a useState variable for that to work properly. We can't just do const, you know, search equals, you know, whatever, like an old school variable. This set search has magic inside of it. And a bunch of people smarter than me wrote this set search function, and it does some amazing things. I know how it works. I would have never thought of it. So we'll just leave it at that. So we've got a useEffect, and it's probably a good idea to go ahead and put a catch in here now that we know that it's working. I usually like to make sure it works first, and we'll just do some shorthand for this, and this is going to return like that. So what this is going to do is if for whatever reason Rick and Morty was broken, like what it showed on, you know, whenever I was trying to do this, and I swear to God, they blocked me because I go here so often. Okay, it's working there. But you saw earlier how it wasn't working. This error here is what's going to return. And you know, a lot of the times you might just do, you know, like a console log error, and then you'll see the entire error object. And there's usually an error.message or something like that. It depends on the API, and I don't remember what the catch is. So it doesn't really matter.
So question real quick. The dot catch where you have ERR for error,
yeah,
that's getting whatever's coming from the base URL at the time.
oh, yeah. Only if this useEffect axios.get, or if this axios.get fails for whatever reason, or something inside of like your then fails, then it will go to catch and output what it thinks the problem is. And again, anytime you see where I put banana, that just means you can name it whatever you want. And I usually do error or error or whatever, but you know, you're defining that variable there, and the catch is putting the value into that error.
Can you give example of what an error would be? Because I'm like missing
Sure.
the point of putting that in there.
That's what's console logging the empty array.
All right. So we're just going to put a really stupid wrong Rick and Morty API.com in there. And if I save this, I'll let it and then refresh. So what you see is it says error, network error, and got this get. So this app.js line 16 right here, output it error, network error, create error, XML HTTP request handle error. Ooh, I don't even know what that means. I'm like super geeky. Basically, it says, hey, maybe you mistyped your HTTPS request. So, but if I save this, you can see it's back to working again. And there's other ways of you telling people that there's an error and stuff like that, but it's not really necessary. That thing just started going crazy. I started getting notifications like crazy on my 30 notifications stacked up. I'm like, I'm not going to listen to that for another 10 minutes. But so like before, when we had that error where I just typed all the wrong stuff into there, we were getting that network error. But as soon as I put it back to something that makes sense, you know, it started giving us this type of information. And this one here says error name not resolved. And you can actually see, you know, I just put in a bunch of junk to see what the error would be. And so that's one of many thousands of possible errors that it could give you. But nothing rendered, so the user wouldn't know that anything was going wrong with the page other than, hey, it's not working. Later on, you may think about putting in, you know, instead of console logging error as your only thing, you know, maybe you could do something like, you know, set characters array, and then we'll pull like array, for example. So I'm just gonna copy this and paste it here. Yeah, that's probably a little overkill. But let's get rid of the episodes because I'm not going to have all this information here. I'm just carrying this down because there's no reason for this. I don't need created. I don't care. Probably with the image. Don't need the URL. Yeah, I need this location. Set characters. Don't care about where you originated. Mail, not going to do that. So we got Rick Sanchez, a live human male and image. So that seems like a pretty acceptable amount of information in there. So we've got setting the characters. We're keeping an array. Inside of the array, we have one element where there is information. And so what we could do is this is a good case of at least showing, hey, we've got a Rick showing up, and you know, you could even put there we go. Something like that. So there's an error message that we're going to actually use to render onto the screen, which is actually pretty cool because we can set characters to whatever we want. So if I save this, and you notice that we don't have that error right now, so we're gonna type in some funky characters in there again and throw that error in here. So we want in our base URL just you know, there a whole bunch of parts. We save that, and let's refresh this. So if we notice now we've got this array with a single object in here, and it's hard coded in. So whenever we render this, whenever we make that component, we're going to have that as our error message. So it'll be error, Rick Sanchez. It's worse than that. He's dead, Jim. Is the two things that it's gonna say. So yeah. That is a way of dealing with an error that makes more sense to the user and is more of a user experience thing than anything that we're going to teach you at Lambda. But it's just to indicate, to tell the user, hey, something went wrong. But we're still going to have, you know, the image and, you know, the phrase that we're going to put in there and stuff like that. But we'll get to that here in a second. We haven't even made components. So let's get rid of all these R's, except for the first one. And we're back to where we have data in our characters. So inside of the components, okay, anybody lost before I continue? I know somebody's lost. Come on. I showed you guys something novel, new.
This is answering questions that I didn't know how to ask, and I want to say thank you, since it seems everybody's doing all right with what you're throwing out.
Excellent. So, so I think that the components are already there, and typically what you'll see is this pattern. And you might see JSX. That's weird. That's a new folder. That's not what I wanted. Delete. All right. I want a new file, not a new folder. So whenever you see, and it's probably going to be plural, so characters list. So anytime that you see something that's plural, it typically deals with an array. Anytime you deal with something that's singular, it typically deals with an object. And that's just, it's stuff that comes from databases more than anything else. Just something to be aware of. Anytime you see plural, you're dealing with a list. Anytime you're seeing singular, you're dealing with just a single object. And JSX and JS are exactly the same thing, but it allows me to do certain things in the JSX code with the linter that's available to me on this that you can't do with JS. So like you saw me struggling to type HTML elements, it just, for whatever reason, it works a lot better when I'm dealing with the JSX. So four things that you need to make a component, at least in earlier React. I know now I don't think that you actually need to, you know, import React from React. I think you can get away. Why do you keep doing that, you pieces? All right, I'm gonna do escape because nobody can use arrow keys anymore with linters. And let's do, this one's called So what we've done here, we have made a new variable name. So this is just a variable. We could actually put this as a string or a Boolean or an array, an object or an array or whatever, but we're going to set this to a function. So that's the second thing that you need for a React functional component. You need an export statement. And convention says that your file name is the same name as your variable name and is the same name as your default export. You can also put in other things in here to export that are not default, but your default is going to be whatever the name of the file name is, just convention. Then the last thing out here, the fourth thing that you need is a return statement. That return statement needs to have something to return. In my case, I like to use these fragments. It's a little too much, but we'll just, whenever I'm starting to do this, I do a couple extra things. So first thing, I make sure I know where I am, and it renders this component. I pass my props object, and I console log my props. I'm also not going to destructure because I think destructuring is evil in the first week of React or the first 2 weeks of React. Honestly, I try not to introduce it until much later, and it has nothing to do with anybody being capable of doing it, but it's kind of like going to the gym and you go once a month and you're wondering why you're not bulking up. You've got to go to the gym more often than once a month, and you've got to do reps, or else you're not going to do anything. So by me doing this is also giving me practice with props so that I understand what I'm doing, and you'll still see me screw it up on occasion. Lambda wants you to, destructure it and whatever, but the whole thing is almost nobody in this cohort understands that all props is a variable name. That's an object. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. So if I save this, well, nothing's going to render because we haven't called it here. We're gonna adjust this a little bit. So I'm gonna put in a header. I'm gonna put in a main and a footer because I can. Where it's like, wait, we don't do that anymore. Right. So this is all just HTML stuff. And then I'm going to do my characters list here. That. And at the top, I'm going to import it. Characters list from components, characters list. I use the shortcut for it, but so // just in case anybody doesn't understand this. So / says, hey, I want to go to the current folder that I'm in. Components says that's a folder. I want to go into that folder. And then characters list is, well, the only file underneath there right now. And if you really wanted to, you could even do JSX at the end of it. It would know that. But it kind of already understands JS and JSX. It's going to be rendering that. So if I save this, we should see characters list on the screen on the left there if I've done it correctly. Okay, so we got characters list. So we know that we've at least gotten in there. And you can notice here this characters list JSX line 4. We'll go here. Oh, that's the console log. Notice how it's just an empty array or an empty object. So all props is equal to is an object. That's it. So what if I wanted to pass something into characters list? So like so I'm passing into this object, this props object, a key of my name and then string value of Brian. I'll go ahead and capitalize my name since it's important. So now when I go over here, you can see that this is now my props object is just a key value pair that quite literally matches this. It's just the syntax is weird. What do you guys think? Questions, comments, concerns?
This is gonna take a second.
Let's see that.
So where you call props, it will take whatever keys you put after that.
That is so pink. Also didn't really go to the right place, but let me figure that. Come on, come here. All right, so it's taking this my name here, and it's making it props.myname. Because props is an object, so if I wanted to access a key on an object, you just do props dot my name, and they would give you your value. But in this case, we're just console logging our props. So pretty much anything that is in, let's do a box. Anything that is past characters list and before, you know, this little ending element thing. So anything that's in between there is an object, or is a key value pair in the object. So
So you could just, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, what if I wanted to add another one? Let me get out of my annotation tools.
If I remember, you don't put a comma or anything, you just space and then type another key value.
Because in main, if I did class equals blah blah blah, and ID equals name. I don't know. Notice I don't have a comma in here. Like in regular HTML, you don't have it. So the idea here in JSX is that we are trying to make it look like HTML, even though you guys have been told it's not. It's just something close to it that appears that way. What React does is it makes it so that it looks like you know, HTML, but like this div here is, you know, if you were to eject this, it would be document.createElement div. Div.className equals app. You know, then it would be document.createElement header, append child to div. Document create element main, then append child to div. Whatever was returned from characters list, append to main, create element footer, append to div, and then once all that's done, it's going to append it to this public file over here, right? Div ID root. So it's going to have this as a query selector, div ID root, and it'll append child to whatever your div ID root is, whatever the variable name is for that. So it does all this stuff automatically that we just learned 2 weeks ago, but you don't have to do any of that. It's doing it for you because you're just typing it like it's HTML. But in the background, it's making a new element.
So JavaScript and React is basically
same
like English and English.
Yeah, it's like you know, Cogni versus like the Queen's English. Know what I mean?
Yes, I grew up with the BBC.
I just remember
Red Dwarf
Snatch.
was my jam back in the day.
I just remember Snatch, the movie Snatch. Just, and it wasn't truly Cogni, but it was close. Everybody who's, they're like, yeah, they did okay. What did he say? I have no idea. So, but what if I say 42 and combine. Right. So I'm 42. My saying is answer to life and everything. So now if we notice this object here, again, let me get out my annotation tool. It's that little arrow thing. Oh, arrow. Not a stamp arrow. This thing. So what you'll notice is that this is now here. And this is coming from characters list. So we have passed in a key value pair, another key value pair, another key value pair into an object called props. We could call it banana. We could call it supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. It doesn't matter. So all a prop is just it's just an object. And anything that you're passing in here shows up there. Even a key will show up there. Just a key is something unique that doesn't have to make sense to anybody at this point. I try not to explain it until later with an example.
Extra little pieces of data you can play with in different ways.
It has more to do when you start setting data into those things. So like whenever you're looping over and you're holding state into an individual component, you need to number those individual components with a very unique number. A lot of the times we'll use like a UUID or something that's not easily duplicatable. Because if you click a button and it doesn't have a key value, then all of the ones that have a key value are going to change. So like with that like button thing that you guys had to do that pulled everybody's hair out. Like let's say that I held that like state in the like button and I push that button, then it doesn't know which button I'm hitting. It thinks that it's all the buttons. So you're clicking 3 buttons at once if you don't have a key. Evil, huh?
So if you set your age to just 42, would it still work? Do you need the quotes if it's a number?
I think so, but I usually like to have, yeah, it doesn't like that. So it wants it to be in quotes.
Got it. Thank you.
But it was a good question.
Figured out.
So, but typically I think you could probably put 42 here if it was a JavaScript 42. So
Which you do by putting the curly brackets around it.
yeah. So like
Got it.
anytime that you're in a return and you see this parentheses, it's returning JSX. Anytime you're in a return and you see a parentheses, it's not an object of 42. It is a literally just the number 42. So if I save that, scroll down a little bit. Okay, so my age is an actual number 42. So yes, you can put a number there, but it would have to be a JavaScript 42, which I'm. So we're just going to leave this here because we're going to just keep passing cool stuff in there, like, I don't know, characters. I don't need to worry about set characters, just characters. So what do you think that I'm going to do? Because, this is technically an object, and usually you can shortcut it by putting characters in there without, putting a key value pair in there. If you just do characters, it'll put the key and the value in there. What do you think this is going to? No, I'm just going to share. So if I go to this object here, notice how it says characters true.
Not what I expected.
All we did was we made a key, but we never linked it to the value up here. So we have to do that. So we have to do characters and then escape out and do and save it. And so this is now the key value, the key in here. that up, and now you can see our characters have been passed down to our characters list. So now this is props.characters. This is where it starts getting a little hairy. So we now know that this is characters because I can come in here and just, call it banana. It doesn't matter. Call it. Here we go. So we open this up. We've got banana as an array. So it's props.banana equals characters. Just that's not very semantic. So why would you do banana equals characters when you just do characters equals characters, right? So that makes more sense. Now we have this character list here that it's not doing much other than console log of props. The last time we ran it, we've got characters, my age, my name, my saying, and this stuff has nothing to do with the sprint. It's just kind of making sure you guys understand props. So in this character list, what we can do is we can call this a section if we want. I much prefer section with articles in it. A lot of people prefer articles with section in it. I'm not entirely sure why anybody would do that. Section makes more sense from somebody who read a newspaper for somewhat half of my life. So when you have a sports section, it's usually just a different chunk of the newspaper, and there's articles inside of the section. So that's why I think this is more semantic to use section first. And yeah, I know you can do a div, but I'm trying to show you guys you can do semantic inside of React. It's not limited to divs. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to actually start looping through our props.banana, or I mean props.characters. So in order for us to do that, we have to break out of this JSX mode and then go into JavaScript mode. So what we can do is we can do props.characters.map. So what we're doing is what map is doing is it is returning a new array instead of for each. So because we're returning a new array, this is going to loop and create a new component for each one of these things. And the semantic on this is to call this variable character singular because we're only dealing with one object inside of that array at a time. Now, the other area that a lot of people will mess up with here is we're returning JavaScript here, and we don't want to return JavaScript. We want to return JSX. So it's a parentheses, not a curly bracket. How many people did I lose?
No,
Yep.
that's fine. I would just think that you put curly brackets inside of those parentheses the way we've been.
Oh yeah. So what we're doing is, so like here we're in JSX mode. We've now broken out of JSX mode, going into JavaScript, and now we want to go back into JSX mode with these. And the map is just we're invoking map here, and we're passing in a callback. But that callback here is returning a JSX element instead of a JavaScript return. So in this case, what we need is we're going to need something, right? Don't know what it is yet, but we probably want a key element, and that key element probably is going to have and we're going to actually end up turning this into its own object or its own component here in a second, but I'm just showing you that you can do it inside of here. But this is kind of prototyping it, but this is going to just get long-winded. So we probably want the name. So we're probably going to do we'll do an H3. Only an H2 probably would be better. H2, we need to break out of our JSX mode that we're in here and go back into JavaScript and do character dot name. So that's going to be the name. And in here, we're going to do character dot status. So if I save this, you think it's going to render some of this stuff? What do you guys think?
No.
Ooh.
Ah.
But if I go back to app.js, what happens if we cause an error? Rick and Morty API, right? So if I save this, ooh, it's different information. But we've communicated to them that, hey, there's something wrong going on. Yeah. Because we're injecting in an array, a single array, where it says error Rick Sanchez. It's worse than that. He's dead, Jim. Species human, gender male, image. These are the only information that I really care about in here. I don't even care about ID1. Because this is the stuff that we're going to be using in order to generate these things. So let me go in here and do another p tag. So if you notice, I can use emit shortcuts. So I could just hit P tab and a JSX. So what if I do something like 750? Character name is a character dot
Species.
yeah, and so we've still got the error. Error Rick Sanchez is a male human. Sound good?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, who is there? Who is worse than that? Who's dead, Jim? So if we get rid of this Rick and Morty, then it should start rendering normal. But we have a case where even if it's broken, it's still rendering something. So that's one of those cases where, yeah, it's kind of cool. You can do that, and you can have a lot of fun with that. So we've got Rick Sanchez. What if we wanted to put it here? So we're going to do an image, and instead of the source being a quote, we're going to do and alt tag. We probably homage. The alt tag, we don't want it to be a quote either. We want something like that. We'll save that. So now we've got actually like pictures. That's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and clear it and let's see what bugs we have. It says, oh, each child in the list should have a unique key prop. Well, we can only go on one of these things, so I guess we could probably call this an article and put a key on here. I don't know, I guess we can use a neat thing that's in a map where it returns two things. So we got character and index. So we can do key equals and then we could do like a string interpolation and do character dot name dash and that would be a pretty darn unique key. So it would have character name dash index. And you could even go even further and do, you know, like character name index. And then that way, even if your character name matches and your index matches, it still needs this character in front of it, which brings us to say that nothing exploded, so that's good. And it no longer gives us that key thing, that big red scary thing. So what we can do is we just copy pasta this thing over to another component, and so we can do character.jsx. So the escape key, and we're going to do a const. So make a new variable called character. Set that to a function with props in it. We're going to go ahead and do console log props return. And we're going to put some elements in there and export. All right, so that's almost done. So what I can do is I can just copy this over, right? And we're going to have a whole bunch of things that we need to put props on if we do this. All right, so the thing is, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to call character. So if I pause for a second, you notice how it says there's like an autofill here. If I'm not careful on this stuff, it's going to just fill that thing. So I'm going to hit escape and that. We're going to go ahead and save character here, and we're going to run this character here, and it's going to explode like nothing else. So it says character is not defined, and we need to import it. Ooh, and we're having different issues here. It says const characters props. I missed my fat arrow right here. So now we've got some cooler stuff. So components character.jsx, character is not defined, index is not defined, character is not defined. All of this stuff here is just not defined. So let's open up line 6. We don't need this key here. We need to cut that and then put it over onto our section. You can see it's well, I guess it would complain before, but what we're doing is we're now moving our key. Oh, sorry, not that one. To our component, because this is going to return that article, and we want that article to have this information in it. So I save it. That's going to clear out a couple of those errors. I can refresh this, and it's, I guess I can save it. All right, so now we don't have character index. We just have this character. So this is where destructuring becomes interesting. So I need to pass in my character into here. and we're getting that character from right here. Now, if I save that, it's still broken because this character doesn't exist in here. It's props.character. So I can either go in here and do props.character, props.character, props.character. That's a lot of typing, even with if I did a multi-cursor. Or this is where destructuring becomes useful. So the idea here is if I make a new variable that is an object that has a character in it, this is going to name a variable called character. So it's going to be character equals props. And that is a shortcut way of saying const character equals props dot character. Yeah, it's still not. But let's see here. Why did it not like it? It's probably because I didn't put it in state. Oh, I liked it. It's good. Yeah, so that worked. So anytime that you see where you've got the curly brackets wrapping that, all it's doing is that, but it allows you to do more than one at a time. Does that make any sense, or did I break things?
Yeah, destructuring is pretty fun.
Yeah, I
Takes
don't.
out a lot of extra steps. And
It takes out a lot of extra steps, and it makes it a little clearer when I start showing people this. But whenever you're dealing with more than one prop that you need to destructure, it's so much faster just to use. Because all the curly bracket says is, okay, well, this props is going to return stuff, but this is the only things that I want to name as variables. And it'll just call them whatever the variable name is, or whatever the key is. So that's how you would pull out a subcomponent from here. And see, I've still got 30 more minutes or 25 more minutes. So, and then I've got a 2-pill week. So this is already a point where you guys are at an MVP. Seriously. Well, you still need to do style components, which is going to take about 30 seconds. You know, to let's see if I can remember my style components. So right, something like that, and then go over here to documentation, that documentation. So we'll do article. If I remember right, you really should have, whenever you're dealing with these backticks, you've got to deal with your semicolon. I don't usually use them that much, but in this case, I'll make that an exception. So, go on my article be styled. We'll say width equals 300 px. No, width colon 300 px. Points. That's garish. Oh, we're not calling an article yet. We've actually got to go with capital A. Hey, it works. So all of these are now with corn silk as a background. Horrible color, by the way. 0 out of 10 stars. So yeah, that is now MVP with one styled component. I would recommend going a little further than that, like, I don't know. Border radius, let's say one. PX dotted, and we'll use one. Okay, so now you can kind of tell there's something there. Maybe do another one for
Margin.
as I said, whenever you're doing this is basically some really weird notation for a function, the backticks. I don't remember a lot of details on it. I actually looked it up just to prove that it could be super geeky. It's a little bit better. And then on the image, we'll just do no, it's not border radius. Is it border radius? Why is that different? Oh, I haven't put it in here yet. Capital I. Yeah, it didn't work. Poster, yeah. Yeah, I don't remember exactly how to do an image. There's some documentation on it, but that's what I get for trying to remember how to do this stuff on the fly. But yeah, so style components maybe learn it more better than I do, but that technically is good enough to actually pass, believe it or not. Maybe in characters list, maybe do it here. Form components, and we'll do them in here called, and we'll do this. All right, so as we move this here, oh, we haven't applied it yet, so we got to apply it to here section. Section. All right, cool. So yeah, as this gets bigger and smaller, it wraps. So that's pretty good. Yeah. So save it. Let's put some portable code in here. We'll do 2021. And then we've got in our footer, we've got a copyright 2021. What the heck is this? Industries LLC. Let's go ahead and make another component for the header. So we'll do over here components, and we'll do say navigation.jsx. React and React. Nope, that doesn't need to be capital. React. just close through that. So we've got costing navigation is equal to that arrow this time. And return. And we're just going to do nav, and then we're going to do input and text value. I don't know what value yet, but we've got a little input box, and we're going to say placeholder equals here. For default. And let's import our navigation header here. And that's it. I don't import it. All right, so at the top of the page, should now have an input box that says search here, blah, 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 does nothing, right? So remember how on this useEffect, everybody was asking, hey, well, what do you put in here? So if search changes, then it's going to redo this useEffect. We've also got this set search. So let's go ahead and make a setter function, and we'll say search handler. And we're going to need to pull in an event. And so the search handler, what we want it to do is we're going to do to pull in some information from e.target.value and modify search. So what we do is we set search first, and we're going to put in e.target. So anything that I type into this box here, eventually we're going to put into search handler, and it's going to set the search box to itself. So it'll re-render this little tiny component here, and everybody's happy. And then it's also going to re-get all of this information every time you hit a keystroke. Probably will blow up all of our APIs, API calls for a minute. So, event. So event is being passed in whenever you hit a keystroke, and it's going to set search. But we've never passed any of this information down to navigation. So we need search, and we need search handler, like that. Okay, so it hasn't exploded yet. Now what we need to do is we need to put our value equals props dot search, and we also need an on-click. Equals. So now the on-click, I believe we can just do props dot search like that. It should work, or not on-click, on change. Geez, I'm losing my mind. Oh, correct. So each time that anything changes in that box, it's going to run props.search handler, and then it's going to go to e.target.value here, and it's going to grab whatever you just typed into props.search and update the state, which is then going to do a search. So if
Dig.
I do R, I, C, okay. It's re-rendering every single time, but if you notice, we don't have any new data. We're not using that search anywhere, but every single time I hit, it's recalling all of this information from the Rick and Morty API. So we're not really wanting to get all characters. We want to be able to filter the character. So you notice how we have like this question mark name equals Rick ampersand status equals alive. Well, the question mark says, hey, we're going to start using parameters in this API. So if you start with a question mark, you know that the next thing is guaranteed to be a key value pair. And then you know the next part is a key value pair because it's got an ampersand. So after the ampersand, you've got status equals alive. The only one that we care about is name equals something. So all we need to do here is go into our base URL, and we're going to do question mark name equals. So that's the first chunk of the problem. Let's see if it breaks anything first with just an empty string. Doesn't break anything. We've got nothing in there. But if we look at the request, let's see if we can find it. Of course, it's not going to do that. Well, I don't want to show you guys the network tab right now, but it's going to https rickandmortyapi.com API character question mark name equals, which is just giving us back Rick Sanchez, Morty, that kind of stuff. So in our axios.get, what we can do is we can concatenate our base URL and our search. So what it's going to do is it's going to use our base URL, the name equals, then whatever's in this search here. So I save this, and I start typing Rick. You can see that the results are instant. So I'm doing an instant search, and here's all of my Ricks. At least the first 20 of them. I did not know there was a Maximus Rick in this. He's dead. Okay, I know I've lost somebody. Come on. Questions, comments, concerns? How'd you do that?
Yeah, definitely lost. I just
No
don't know where it
questions.
began.
Yeah, like where's the original Axios API? Like, doesn't it have to be under axios.get?
Yeah, there's only, it's still the same axios.get. We just modified it so that it added a search to it.
That's pretty sick, dude. This jives.
Yeah, wait until we get into pagination. So I think I think I'm a little early on finishing. Anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns?
Can you just walk through that search, the whole thing again? Just with like the
Sure.
overall, like.
So in our navigation, let me kind of clean this up a little bit so that it's less big. So we've got an input field here. So we've got different things that we're doing inside of here. So each one of these key value pairs in here is on e.target. So e.target.text is text. e.target.placeholder is search here. e.target.value is something we pass from props, and onChange is something that we pass from props. You notice we didn't like invoke it here because we're not wanting to run it right now. We're wanting whenever they change it, that it actually goes and runs it. So we're using this as its own callback. instead of, you know, doing something like, you know, something like that, right? So it's just a shortcut to making its own callback and then invoking it with event. So it naturally invokes it with event because that's what a callback does. We're just passing a callback into a function. So, but we're using the search handler function as the callback instead of writing yet another function to run the function, which just seems redundant. If that makes any sense. So this is the first part where you set up your input box. And the reason why you have to put your value in there is because this is anything that you typed in. So whenever you hit a key, we want to store that value and redisplay it. So anytime that we make a change to this, it's re-rendering the screen and redoing the axios.get. So it's a little bit inefficient, but it gives you your results better, and you don't have to have a submit button. You don't have to do anything. It's already there. So this is kind of a neat thing. Plus, also technically, the input box by default is a text box, so you can get around even putting that in, and it's even slicker. But most people want the input type just because why not? So in the app.js, we're passing in the search function and this new function that we made called the search handler. The search handler, we're passing in that event. So anytime you click a key on the keyboard in there, it's going to reload that page because you have done a on-change event to value. And all we're doing is we are setting our search value where it's equal to whatever you just typed in that box. So it makes a record of what you're typing. So it's basically, this is a fancy keylogger in here. So we're keylogging it into its own variable called search. And then technically, we're transmitting that out because of this right here inside of the dependency array. Anytime that you make a change using set search, it modifies search, and it's going to cause that to re-render whatever's inside of this useEffect. So it's going to run the useEffect again, and anything that happens inside of here, it's going to re-render, you know, the whole page. So what we've done is we are concatenating baseURL and search. So baseURL from the beginning is just this HTTPS Morty API / character !name equals. So the !name equals doesn't have anything in it at first, so it doesn't care. But as soon as you start typing, it then starts running its search. So like, you know, if you wanted snowball, we get snowball. And it's fast, and it makes sense. Did that make any more sense, or still exploded head?
No, definitely made more sense. Thank you.
Excellent. Anybody else? Now's the time.
I wanted to go back and do this. We would just go to react.com and
No, you would go to your command line, and typically I'll make a new folder, all lowercase, so no caps, and nothing starts with a number. In my case, I made a new one called RNM-PT30, all lowercase, and or RNM-PT30, and I cd'd into that folder and then ran npx, not npm, space create -react -app space and then period. So the period puts it into the current directory and basically runs the create react program from online using npx. So it downloads it from online and then starts outputting all of the program's contents into the file, the folder that we're currently in.
So that's the meat and potatoes of what we'll be doing with the sprint.
Yeah, pretty much. I basically got an MVP and well, and explaining and answering questions in less than 2 hours. I could probably nuke this out in 30 minutes if it was just me going at it, including the search. And I haven't done styled components in a very long time, so maybe 6 months. And I remembered how to do them by just going to the documentation, and I got it working. It's very simple.
This is a lot less intimidating now. Is there any, do you have any recommendations on a good place to look for terminology and stuff that we should know, or ways to talk about what we're doing and how things happen?
I'm a big fan of watching YouTube videos from like Traversy, Fireship. I've got like a whole list of them, but one of these days I'll probably make like an entire like list of stuff that I will recommend to people at certain times. But if you were to watch like Traversy's React crash course, you don't even have to do it, but listen to how he speaks, listen to the terminology that he uses. If you don't understand something, write it down. And as he goes through it, try to infer what you think it is, write down what you think it is, and then look it up after you're done watching the video. Without you even being in front of a keyboard trying to follow along, just try to get the lingo down by listening. And that's how you did when you were a kid,
That is my biggest problem, is understanding how to ask the questions that I have.
Well, the biggest thing is a lot of times you say, hey, I have a question. And you can just post a screenshot of an error and you just say, I don't know how to fix this. And you'll find somebody that's able to understand and able to infer what the problem is, where you can't infer because you've never seen that, or you don't know where to look to find what you're missing. But almost every single time that I run into an issue over here, I try to explain why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. And there's a lot of the times where, like when I had, hey, character is not defined, it didn't give me any outputs. It just puked, right? So I had to infer that the problem had to do with something that I already knew was the problem, which was we weren't doing props.character. So a lot of the times what you'll do in those cases, if you don't know what's going on, you just comment out code. And you start commenting it out. And if it didn't fix the error, we'll go somewhere else and comment that code out. And see what breaks, what doesn't break. But almost every time you run into something on here, now let me clear this out. And we'll backspace. So every time you run into something on here, you'll notice that it has, what file it's in and what line number it's on. What file it's in, what line number it's on. What file it's in, what line number it's on. Over and over and over and over and over. And, it's also, in the end, it's a good idea to go ahead and, like remove all your console logs. In production code, you don't see any console logs. But for right now, I'm not worried about it. I don't dock anybody using console logs until they actually get into the workplace and try doing that on a production server. And then I say, hey, you know what? You forgot to remove the console logs. And if it continues to be a problem, then I don't think they're going to get fired. But they still have to fix it. And it starts to get annoying for me to say, hey, remove your console logs. But yeah, there's no danger of you leaving a console log in there and somebody hacking a plan unless you're console logging something sensitive like secret or whatever. And you probably wouldn't be doing that on a front-end application anyway, because it's inherently insecure, just the way the way that it comes. You have to like fight for security. And that just comes with time.
So rather than freak out about, hey, how do I ask what the heck's going on? Just caveman and say,
Yeah, pretty much.
Look.
And also ask in the help channel. And the weekends, the help channel is honestly dead, but that's probably your best bet. But yeah, almost every time that I've run into a problem, try to figure out where the problem is. If it doesn't tell you what line number it's got an error on, then, you know, what did you just do? You know, comment that chunk of code out and try to figure out one step at a time what it's doing.
this is gonna be a fun weekend. I've been hung up on some stuff that definitely got clarified right here. So
Nice.
it's going to be fun. It was nice to sit back and actually just watch and listen and be able to communicate while it was going on. And that helped a lot. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So, anybody else have questions? Now's the time.
Why is the pinky toe so hard to paint?
I can't even see my pinky toes anymore. They're underneath the chair. Oh, no, I can see my toes.
Now, my son picked out a red for Father's Day, and he loves Spider-Man, so I figured, to heck with it. I'll go blue with my toes. We got Spider-Man.
Sure, that works. But yeah, pinky toe, I have no idea. It just doesn't, I have a hard time clipping my toenails, so I can't even imagine painting them. I'm getting too old for this, so to speak.
Different strokes for different folks.
Absolutely.
But
I also don't have any children to entertain with my toenails, so.
with API calls like this and having all that data up there and available, this is really not that bad.
Oh no, it's not bad at all. As I said, once we get into pagination, it gets even better because then you can skip through to all of them. So like, you know, I do a lot of stuff with Rick and Morty because it's a lot easier to learn on something that you already know. So this is one that I did. I did this in about 3 hours the first time I touched Vue. And I've already got it deployed, of course. But it's the same basic idea as what we just did here, except I didn't do any styling. But I was trying to figure out some of the harder things in Vue, which is a concept called props up, events down. And so I have pagination where I can actually go to the next page. But I haven't quite finished it yet. But I will one day. Maybe this weekend I'll mess with it. But the idea is to actually consume, you know, not just the characters, but the locations and the episodes and everything all in one go, where you don't have to change to a different page to do any of those things. Make it a complete web application that accesses every bit of data on that page.
So we got a break coming up, and I'm definitely going to have to play around with some personal project stuff.
Yeah.
But as far as it goes with copyright and stuff like that,
yeah.
copyright, oh man, I study law, so it's funky. And I understand that just because it's on the internet, it may be public, but it's not within the public domain. And so you can't just,
for an
unless
example,
like this.
Look at Antenna Rec. That got copyright struck. So the agent of the person who drew specifically Antenna Rick sent Rick and Morty API a cease and desist on removing Antenna Rick from their website.
Oh
yeah, but that's not me. I don't have to deal with this crap because it's on their API. It's not even my data.
So
So
unless
all
we're
I'm
doing
doing
something
is-
on our own, we don't really have to worry too much about, copyright protection and such.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV, and I did not sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night. So, um,
I have a lot of weird hobbies,
yeah.
but it was worth
So-
asking before I start playing with internet information.
Yeah, well, so most of these APIs nobody really cares about, because first off, this is like a fandom type thing. For them to go through and copyright strike and Antenna Rick, and there's like 2 or 3 other ones in here that got copyright struck by the same agent. And it's like, okay, well, jerk, you know? So we're not watching Rick and Morty episodes. We're just looking up information about them. And even that information is tenuous at best. But if I wanted to see which episodes Antenna Rick is in, I can still look at that information because that's metadata. But that image, I can't.
When you write private projects and stuff if you end up getting, say, a job where you are the sole person doing the majority of the programming for that company, you would basically be working with someone in their legal department of some sorts to
Oh,
get
yeah.
any information.
Larger companies, there's always, first off, artwork specifically, they're going to have their own artwork. If they are using something that's open source, they're either going to hide that they're not giving back to the community really well, like Microsoft does, or they're going to just give back to the community like Microsoft does. And there is no in between. So like there's large chunks of open source things that Microsoft used back in like Windows XP, for an example, and it's been exposed that that's actually happened. And well, who's going to sue them? They're the 800-pound gorilla in the room. So they broke a license. Ooh. So it really just depends on who your employer is.
Well, the reason I was asking is I was wanting to make a little mini project for the loud child right now. And I was wanting to do something where I could have it to where he can type in his name and his the year he was born or his birth date, and have it pull information from, say, news articles and such from the day he was born and compile a list of information.
There's probably an API out there that's probably even free that you can do that. I don't know what the API is, but if you were to, if you had a public API, then I would say the onus is on the public API because they're the source of data. You're just a consumer.
I just wanted to double check before I did that.
Yeah, I don't think anything's going to explode, but especially if you're paying for the data and those people own the data, then there's probably more motivation for it to be clean data than a free database. But like for instance, like SpaceX, for example, they own their data and they have their own API, and they want people to connect to it and make stuff out of it.
That doesn't sound like somebody you'd want to mess with. They probably can make sure you disappear.
Well, no, they actually want you to play with the data because they want engineers. They like open information. Up until the point where you're actually doing like missiles or something like that. Not that much, but this is just an API on, hey, these are the launch dates. These are, our historical data on what blew up, what didn't, what landed, what didn't, what's still up there, what came down, that kind of stuff. But they've made that public, and they want you to use it. It's designed for hobbyists. So I'm sure they pulled this up, but there's a GitHub that has a list of public, and a lot of these are not safe for work. The Chuck Norris one specifically is very not safe for work. The Chuck Norris jokes. But you know, they got daily cat facts, cat as a service, just cat pictures. Obviously, there's more cat stuff online than shit to stick at. Anime discovery, anime quotes, industry news, you know, things like that. Let me see if there's news.
The things I want to do with that information is over 9,000.
Okay, here you go. Search for news and metadata from Associated Press. You got to have an API key to do it. So just like when you went to NASA, you'd have an API key. So, and just follow the directions and see how far you get before you run into a wall.
I think I can handle that.
So, but yeah, Associated Press is usually pretty open about this kind of stuff. So, but yeah, you'll have to figure it out. So, like, probably metadata services is probably pretty good for what you need. But you'll have to go through and figure out exactly what you want. So if he wants to read news article, it's probably a media API. If you're just trying to figure out what was there, it's probably metadata. And then elections, I don't know anything about elections. So
I know more than I wish I did.
yeah. So all right. But yeah, as for legality, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't even pretend to be one. Oh, what was it? Didn't they have like a talking cat? Yeah, there's a talking cat. It's a male animal who is alive. Not a human. It's an animal.
But thank you.
Let's say 2021. What the heck is this industry's LLC?
Yes, that's something I stuck into the footer here.
Thought I saw that in there, but I wasn't sure.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Okay, well, if there's no more questions, I'll go and let everybody go so I can go and do build week.
Brian, are you going to post? I know you're going to post the video, but we also post this project.
Likely, yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yep. All right, no more questions. I will talk to you everybody a bit later. And I'll get this posted up on YouTube whenever it's done processing.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep, have a good
Thanks,
day.
Brian.
Have a good night.
Have fun, everybody.
Yep.
Good luck.